Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel Watercolor Impressions. This week we are going to do a skyline. This is a view from Walk on Lakeshore to Toronto downtown. Indeed, it adds its own beauty. Before we get on to it, hit that subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. Check the video description for the drawing template and reference so you guys can follow this tutorial with me. So I start with the sky, the cobalt wash, and I'm taking a clean brush with water. I'm taking some of the paint from the white beads in the CN Tower. It always scares me to do a CN Tower painting because I always get the proportions wrong. Because you have to be careful when people look at this painting, they can say the proportion isn't right. So I'm always scared about it, and my girlfriend always makes fun of me about that. So I'm also trying to mix the colors as I paint as well, because when you paint any kind of cityscape or skyline, try to mix the colors with the sky as well as with it as well. What I mean by that, if I put a color on CN Tower, it blends with the sky, that's fine, because once we add the shadows and everything, it will pop up more. I also did another step. When the sky come down, I warm up the wash with cadmium orange, and I'm also trying to connect that sky with other buildings as well. So when I throw the colors for the buildings, I'll look at my reference and I check what's the base color and I'll just put it. So you don't have to be exactly true to the colors or exactly accuracy in the painting or from your reference. The one thing you have to be careful is the major buildings in your city skyline, because some of the major buildings in Toronto are the Rogers Centre, which is underneath the CN Tower, and there's this BMO building and there's a TD building. So that one I'll try to be more accurate as possible, and the rest, I don't care. I'll just throw colors as I see. For the blue, I'm using Cobalt Turquoise. For the green, I'm using Meridian and a little bit of Cobalt Blue in it, so that this condo's colors are Cobalt Blue with a little bit of Meridian in it and Cobalt Turquoise. And for other colors, I'm trying to mix like warm colors and everything. And I also make sure that to have some color variations, even though I'm not being accurate to the reference, because that will have a monotony in our painting, because I want to have color variation in our painting, because when people look at this, they should see something vibrant as well. So the trees underneath it, since it's a fall season, it's not fall, it's winter. I'm totally excited for fall and summer. So for that, I'm using cadmium orange and a little bit of burnt sienna in it, so that I can get the warmth color in it, and I connect the trees with French Ultramarine blue and Cobalt blue for the water. So since my watercolor paper is wet, I'm trying to put some colors on the left hand side, because that's not our focal point, so I'm trying to have some blurry details there. And I left the painting dry for a bit, then we can start adding the details. I'm going to start from left to right, because sometimes if you're a right hand painter, start from left to right, because so you don't press on your paint while you paint, because that happened to me a lot. So I'll start with the details here. I added the shadow on the left side building, and I'm trying to add the details. When you add the details for skyline or any kind of cityscape, make sure to add the primary shapes first, the secondary and the tertiary. If you do, if you miss any kind of step, that will cause you more confusion, and you don't know where to stop and where to begin, and it kind of go in a limbo. So I'm trying to add some shadows as well. So I'm trying to see a primary shape of shadows in the color. So now I'm jumped onto the BMO building. You could see the details, even though I'm not trying to be accurate, the lines are not perfect, that's fine, because when you see this painting from far, it gives a beautiful impression of cityscape and its details. For most of since it's a kind of like a fairly evening scene, and most of the shadows are the cooler side, and the cooler side shadows would be mostly on Cobalt Blue, French Ultramarine Blue, and you can mix any colors with it. But as it comes down to the mid-ground building, the mid part of the building, I'm trying to increase the intensity of the shadows, because it's in the front. Sometimes in watercolor, when you paint, the colors go and settle at the bottom with the water, and it might cause some ugly marks sometimes. So what I usually do is flip my canvas or flip my watercolor block, and so that it paints by itself and blends the color by itself, so I don't have to do anything else. Now I'm focusing on the secondary shapes on the mid part of the building. I'll be trying to be a little bit accurate here, because this is close to a focal point. I'm trying to get like as much as details as I can, because I'll be putting more details in the mid part of the building than anywhere else, because the rest is kind of like it's a supporting shape than for our major shapes. Like even since I'm there, I'm trying to add details as well, and you can see I'm also trying to make sure to get the details thickness properly as well. And when you do this, make sure to use like a really pointy brush for it, and make sure that it has like a really thin crisp tip in it, because that will give like really nice lines for your painting. Because I have painted before with a really thick brush, and it doesn't look good, and the details comes in a different variety of shapes and edges, and that will cause the scale in your painting, because it's really important in any kind of painting to show the scale properly, because that's why whenever I paint, most of the painting have figures, because if you don't show the scale of your painting, or how big is the shapes or anything, and you might lose the viewer's attention. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to add some gradient for the CN tower. The easiest way to do is to flip the canvas, and this part always scared me. As I said, I'm really bad at like doing proportions of the CN tower. It's fine, I'll try to do whatever I can. And I'm also trying to I'll also try to add some shadows, imaginary shadows at the end as well. So now I'm focusing on the building next to the CN tower, and I'll try to keep it really fairly weak in this building, because I want to have more love to CN tower than anywhere else in the painting. I'm checking the reference, and I'm trying to add some details as well. So this is the building I was talking about. This is the TD Bank building, and it's also a really major building in Toronto, so I make sure that I add that details as well. Now let's add some details on the rightmost corner of the building, but here like I'm trying to make it some marks, because I'm not worried about that much in this building, because it's just gonna act as a shape, as I said, because our major focal point is our CN tower and the Rogers Center at the bottom. And there's a lot of houses there, and the roofs are a little bit of a violet in them, so I added that violet with a little bit of white paint in it. And I'm also adding the shadows. When I squint my eyes, in your reference, whenever you squint your eyes, it will show where to add your shadows, and it will show as the basic shape as possible, because it will minimize the details for you. So that's the easiest way you can add details. Now I jumped onto the trees, because the trees look really flat, so I'm adding a little bit of darker value at the bottom, and I'm also adding some marks at the bottom as well. There's also shadows from the buildings at the bottom. I make sure to add that as well. And there's also a little bit of darker part which connects the water and the floor. I also did that, even though in reality in the reference the building in the mid part, which is in the front, I had like a white it literally looks like a white building, but I want to create some gradient, so I add a little bit of gradient and at the bottom with white paint in it. And I also some added details for the Rogers Center as well. So now I jumped on adding the details for the CN tower. It always scares me whenever I go and paint CN tower, but I'll persevere, and let's see what I can come up with. So there is also a big shape at the top and the bottom. So for that I'm using a little bit of redness in my painting. And for the shadows on the left hand side, I'm using ramp or a little bit of Payne's gray in it, and I made as a single shape, and I'll add at the end. I also have red paint in my brush, so there's nothing shows that it's Canada other than having a Canadian flag, so I added that as well. And the good thing about Canadian flag is it's red, so it gives a nice contrast to your painting. So now I'm jumping on to the tertiary details, what I was talking about, and I want to make it like blurry as possible, so I don't want this to be sticking around. And that building was like at the back, so I try to bring it in by adding a shadow, imaginary shadow. And now I jumped onto the BMO building. I'm trying to be for this building, I'm trying to be accurate as possible because that's a really major building, which is tall, the next tallest building compared to CN Tower and the TD Bank. There's also like a blue logo at the top, the red logo. I added that as well. So now let's add some details, the darker details at the bottom. And there's also a pathway in Lakeshore where you can walk and see around the building, because this is called the boating docks. In summer it's filled with boats. You know, I can't take this view enough because I usually go out there and paint in summer. Now I'm added a little bit of white paint and a little bit of viridian in my brush, so I'm trying to see where I can, you know, add some details with that, and I added that because since the Toronto skyline has a lot of condo buildings, so that has like a lot of things in it. So now it's my favorite thing to do, bringing eyelets in our painting. So I'm using good old gouache because it's really hard to bring sometimes white in our painting, so I'm using gouache for it. And you can also use Chinese white, but make sure to use it out of your tube and not use any water in your brush, or else it will go lighter on you. Whereas gouache, you can literally use it from your tube, and it gives a really good eyelets for our painting. And you could see once we started adding eyelets, everything popped up. And as I said, there was like these houses near Lakeshore, and just by adding a little bit of windows there, it almost showed like, you know, there are houses there as well. And I'm trying to clean up some of the shapes so close to Rogers Center as well, and I'm keep building it. And once again, I can't say this enough, squint your eyes and it will give a way to add the details. Again, I'm super scared to do this, but I'll see, because when I did this, I thought of doing CN Tower as a single shape, but after that my artistic mind doesn't, the vanity prevents it. I want to have all the details in my painting. And I did like paint quite a bit, spend quite a bit on CN Tower to get the shape right and get the perspective right. That's the imaginary shadow I was talking about. I added that shadow because it gives a really good, nice contrast to the CN Tower building, because in the reference that shadow wasn't existed, but this is like, you know, something I created just to create contrast and just to bring impact to the CN Tower, so that it gives all the focal point goes in there. So I'll just, you know, keep building this pigment. Still I'm happy with it. And there's also a white bit in our the Canadian flag. I added that, and so I thought it would be nice. This Canadian flag was somewhere across the left. I brought it in the midground as a good composition element, because that will have a little bit of depth from the background to the midground. Because since in our painting the foreground looked pretty weak because there is no lead-in for us, so that Canadian flag with a white pole is the lead-in for us for this painting. Again, it makes me laugh again whenever I go and paint the CN Tower. I always not happy with painting the CN Tower. I don't know why, and I try to fix it. So you can see I'm using a lot of dabbing in my CN Tower, because once you're not happy with any kind of like paint you put in, you can use like tissue paper to dab it and take off the painting. If you try to rub it with your finger or try to do anything, it will leave ugly marks in your painting. What you need is just a clean tissue paper and rub it off. That's it. So I'm trying to add some details. The white paint, since I have white paint in my brush, so I thought of like adding some details on the water. So now this is another thing I tried to do, and it didn't came as I thought, but I want to create an impression of reflection, the skyline reflecting on the water, but I wasn't happy about it, so I made it as a good lead-in for us. So for this, I'm using French Ultramarine Blue and a little bit of Cobalt Turquoise and a little bit of Cerulean Blue. I kind of mixed all kind of blues in the water, but it came out pretty good. I'm happy with what I got, and since I also have some white paint in my brush, I thought like why not use as impression of waves. And before it dries out, I want to anchor the ground as well as the boarding dock. So I'm using Pion's Gray wherever the plane sits the water, because that will give anchors everything on the water. As I said, I'm going to be using the white paint in my brush, So I'm using white paint, leftover white paint in the brush, just to create an impression of waves and some little bit of light coming through in the water, because I don't want this to be reading as a single flat shape as a water. So I'm happy with it. Now it's a matter of adding the tertiary details and finishing up everything. For the TD bank, I added a little bit of green, so that's our logo, green and white. But this far, it just like add a little bit of green. That will that is more than enough for this painting. And now I'm adding the details, which is close to the CN tower, and it looked really weak, so I thought of adding a little bit of details, windows, and that's all you need. You'd be surprised how less you have to paint when you paint cityscapes or in watercolors just to get that impression. I'm just trying to clean it up, and I'm keep building up the pigment until I'm happy with it. So now I'm adding the details in the mid building, which is against the CN tower, so I'm also adding some details as well. I will only adding a lot of details in the buildings which are close to our focal point, and the rest I'll keep it weak. I don't even going to be worrying about it. Actually, we are at the end of our painting journey. There is this building which sits in front of the BMO and in front of the front building. It looked really plain and flat, so I brought a little bit of shadows in there and a little bit of cleanup here and there. I think that's it, folks. Now it's your turn. Take my reference and drawing template, and let's see what you can come up with. If you ended up doing this painting, and let me share with me, and I always like to share the paintings with my subscribers as well. Thanks again for watching this Skyline painting video tutorial with me. Let me know what you learned from this video and what's your favorite color in this painting. If you have any other questions or subjects you want me to cover in watercolors, write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or comment below. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. If you're a person who enjoys cityscape painting, check the playlist, and please do share with your friends and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.